Ask Rob Smith if he would come and lead us in our service this morning.
Can I ask you to follow with me in our order of service? We've come together today to mourn a relative, to honour a departed friend, to dispose reverently of the mortal body, and to show our sympathy with the bereaved. Can I ask you to join me in saying the prayer that you'll find printed? The calm of your peace, may our grief give way to joy through Jesus Christ our Lord. Though they die, yet shall they live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. If I can ask you all to stand, we're going to sing the hymn Amazing Grace together.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home.
Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I can remove mountains, and have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long and is kind. Love envies not. Love vaunts not itself. It is not puffed up. It does not behave itself unseemly. It seeks not her own. It is not easily provoked. It thinks no evil. It rejoices not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love.
We're now going to have two special tributes in song. The first will be from John Paul Young, and the second from Ted's brother Steve.
Ted, you improved the life of everybody you came in contact with, and we'll never forget you, mate. Here he comes down the hill, all the world standing still. He goes here we go. He sings of the love all around us, and he dances the steps we all know. He lives in a world where a boy and a girl can live out their dreams all day long. And so it is magic that he brings, with a song and a dance you can sing. Here we go. And the band will strike up without warning and raise every man from this sleep, and be given a plan for a woman and a man to point out it's a world we can share. And so it is magic that he brings, with a song and a dance you can sing. Ah, 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 here we go. Live for the love you've been given. Don't be afraid, let it show. Face all your fears and misgivings. Dance to the tune of his soul. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
This is a song my brother and I wrote about 3 years ago. In days before we met, I could only dream of fantasies, but now all has changed. My mind is filled with you and me, so darling, don't let it slip away. The feeling's here to stay. Just close your eyes and think of me, no matter where you are. You are. Winter nights alone brought me fears of insecurity. You came and broke the chains. It was your love that set me free. Remember, don't ever let it go. Just let your feelings show. Then close your eyes and think of me, no matter where you are. You are, no matter where you are. Was it love or not? I just couldn't tell. Caught between heaven and hell. I couldn't explain what was on my mind. This heart of mine's been working overtime. Was it something I did, something I said? These crazy feelings going through my head. It's hard to know you're upside when you're down. No longer lost in fantasies. Just close your eyes and think of me, no matter where you are.
Martin Albert Mulry, better known to us, of course, as Ted. He was the eldest child of Martin and Alice Mulry, born on September 2nd, 1947, in Oldham, just outside of Manchester, in the UK. He acquired the name Ted because of the teddy boy gear that he used to wear as a teenager. It was also as a teenager that he began writing songs. However, Ted's interest in music started much, much earlier than that. When he was about 2, his parents took him down to the local club along in the street where they lived. And down at the end of the room where they were was a singer performing on a fairly low stage. Before they realized it, Ted had vanished from their side, and when they eventually found him, there he was, up on the stage, standing beside the piano, singing along at the top of his voice. I think it was from then on that Ted showed, in many ways, on many occasions, that he was pretty much made for the stage. At age 5, Ted started school. When Alice, his mother, picked him up at the end of his first day, he said to her, "Thank goodness I don't have to go back there again." "Why?" said Alice. Ted said, "Because they won't let you sing all the time." Such was his love of singing. Well, unfortunately for Ted, he did have to go back to school again and wasn't allowed to sing all the time. But his interest in music continued. And at age 8, his grandfather gave him a mandolin, an old mandolin with a missing string. But Ted was fascinated by the instrument and would fiddle with it for hours. And as a result, he soon began pestering his parents for a guitar. Eventually, when they realized he was serious, Alice said to him, "Well, if you can play a tune on the old mandolin, then we'll get you a guitar." Now, Alice thought that this challenge would pretty much guarantee that they'd never have to get Ted a guitar. But Ted was determined, and about a year later, he called Alice in to listen to the tune that he'd worked up. He played it perfectly, missing string and all. And as a consequence, he was rewarded with a guitar. When Ted was about 13, his younger brother Steve was born. The very best of sibling rivalry traditions, you might say. Ted took great delight in tormenting his brother. Once Steve learned to walk, one of Ted's favourite games was to stretch a towel between the end of the couch and the nearby chair so that it looked like a bridge. And then he would try and coax Steve to walk across this bridge. Now, Alice assures me that Ted never actually succeeded in getting Steve onto his bridge of pain. But Steve's not quite so sure about that. But they can work that out. Ted also loved to push his brother Steve in his pram, particularly along the beach when they went on family holidays. But don't get the wrong idea, if this was some sort of good-natured loving act. Ted would get down as close to the water edge as he could, and then push the pram as fast as he could possibly go, so that a mixture of wind, water and sand would be hitting young Steve full in the face, leaving him gasping for breath. I think he's just out of therapy now. Of course, there was an enormous amount of affection between these two brothers, as anyone who knew them could tell you. But Ted's tendency to tease Steve never really left him. In fact, even on Steve's wedding day, as Noor was coming down the aisle, Ted, who was the best man, was humming in Steve's ear, "Here comes the bride," completely out of tune, trying to get Steve to lose his composure at a critical moment. I think Steve just about held on. But back to Ted's story. By the time he reached his mid-teens, he was really developing that cheeky and somewhat outrageous sense of humour that would become so familiar to all of us who knew him and loved him in the years ahead. Alice told me yesterday one incident that took place when Ted was about 15. He had to go and visit his Irish auntie and the family who lived just down the road a little bit. And so Ted went and put on an old fur coat. He put a tea cosy on his head. He rolled up his trousers, put on some of his mother's makeup, I think, and then turned up at his aunt's place, unrecognisable, in a heavy Irish accent, asked if he could have a loaf of bread to feed his starving children until the husband got home from the hall. The auntie was very moved by this and went and told family, this poor lady was at the front door, and they decided we must give her a loaf of bread. Came and presented this to Ted, at which point he pulled the tea cosy off and revealed his true identity. I think it was much laughed all around, especially from Alice, who was watching the whole thing from across the street. When Ted finished school, he worked for a time as an apprentice mechanic. But by the time he reached 18, he decided he'd had enough of England, and he migrated all alone to Australia, leaving his family behind for the time being. The year was 1966. When Ted got here, he worked on the roads with the DMR, driving a steamroller, amongst various other things that he did. But by 68, the family had followed Ted to Australia and had settled out in Campbelltown. And it was about this time that Ted's musical career was getting underway. One day, in fact, Ted sat down and played his mother a song. The song was called Don't Wear Black. She liked it very much. And then he said to her, "What do you think I should do with some of my songs?" And not realizing that Ted had actually written this song that she'd just heard, Alice said, "Well, if you can write something even half as good as the one you've just played me, then I'm sure you'll do okay." It was not long after that that Ted presented 4 other songs to Alberts, and they quickly snapped him up. And in 1970 was the release of his first single, Julia, which raced up to the top of the charts. As I suspect you know, this was followed up by the Vander and Young classic Falling in Love Again, which went to number 1. In 1972, Ted left his solo career behind to form the rock band the Ted Mulry Gang, TMG. Records were released internationally with hits in Germany, in Sweden, the USA, the UK, Denmark, Japan, Holland, New Zealand, and of course Australia. From 8 albums and 15 singles, TMG charted 13 of these in the top 40, 6 in the top 10, and 5 in the top 5. And as we all know too well, TMG made the most significant mark on Australian music history with the song Jump in My Car, which stayed at number 1 for, I think, 11 consecutive weeks. The band continued to tour right up until the time that Ted became ill in July last year. In other words, we're talking about a band that stayed together and played together for nearly 28 years. And that is a remarkable feat in anybody's language. Well, I'm going to pause at this point and ask Herm Kovac, who is the drummer from TMG, almost a second brother to Ted, to come and say a few words and share some memories of their times together.
Ted's advice to me whenever things were difficult was, "Pal, just don't think about it, go for it. So if I fumble, then forgive me." Our hearts go out to Ted's mum Alice, his brother Steve, and partner Lenny. And Ted is here at the moment, he's smiling. Another full house. He's probably wondering how you all got him for nothing. And he's smiling, all his mates here, all his buddies. Ted had hundreds of mates all over the place. And they weren't just in the music industry. He had mates that were in television, radio, mechanics, minister like Bob, racing car drivers, truck drivers, and a pirate from New Zealand. They were all his mates. I remember not so long ago in a little country town, one of those venues where the pub and motel were all in the same spot. The good ones, you didn't have to drive for food. Is that better? Okay. We're in a little country town. You didn't have to, the venue, the pub, motel were all in the same area. It was getting a bit late, so I thought I'd track him down, see what he was doing for food. And there he is, playing darts with the locals. He's playing against this guy, and all the locals are cheering for Ted. And Ted's winning, as you do when you're a rock star in a country town. Anyway, I said, "Look, we've got to go, mate." And he said to the guy, "Okay, Bill, Jack, whatever his name is, see you tonight, don't forget it's your shout. If you have trouble getting in, just ask for me." And as we're leaving, I said, "Is that one of your old buddies from the bulldozing days?" Ted said, "No, that's the guy that filled up the hire car in the roadhouse on the way into town." That's what he was like. You could meet someone at a Bowser, that night they'd be playing darts, and the whole family would be having drinks with Ted. People warmed to him quite easily. I've been lucky with the band who've known Ted for 30 years. We all shared a house together, toured consistently, and I've been extra lucky because besides all that, I've spent a lot of hours in the recording studio with him and had him as a best friend. Ted is also a very generous and fair person, an example of that being, like Bob said, Ted had a solo career. He had a string of hit singles and he had an established name. Yet he decided he wanted to form a rock band with 3 totally unknowns. So here you've got the lead singer of the band's named after him, he's had success, and he insists on everything being split equal and being an even share. When it came to song decisions and other decisions, he insisted on majority rules. And so many times he was outvoted on things, but he just took it on the chin and smiled. And that stayed in place from day one up to now, so we'll never forget that. Ted was an extremely funny guy. Everyone that knows him has heard the gags and the little voices. He's disrupted so many recording sessions, something that normally takes an hour to do would take 3 hours, because you'd have to listen to the little voices, the stories and the gags. You leave everyone in hysterics and looking forward to coming back again. Those of you that have worked with him know that, and working with Ted was fun. With Ted, what you saw is what you got. Ginger Meds. He never ever took himself seriously. He never ever went into Ted Mulry mode for people. He was the same off stage as he was on stage. I remember with the Gimme Ted benefit, which he was floored by, he was stunned by and overwhelmed by, and I know that that did more for him, gave him more time than any medicine did. I remember going to him after that and saying to him, we never ever called ourselves by our real names. I said, "Pal, if ever you thought you were a 2-bit songwriter, singer that really didn't achieve much, people didn't really take that seriously, well, you have to know now that you really achieved a lot, that you really contributed, that everyone respects your music, respects your talent, and above all that, really loved you." And he looked at me and said, "Yeah, I guess you're right, pal. Put the kettle on." That's what he was like, very humble, except for when it was checkout time at a motel. You know, everyone's saying in, you know people are going to come bashing on the door and they're going to kick you out, and you're just waiting for that voice, that dreaded voice that is the nightmare for every touring musician. "Room service, checking out!" Anyway, you'd be panicking. You'd go down to Ted's room to see if he was up and say, "Well, come on, pal, we've got to go, you know, we're going to get chucked out." Ted would be sitting up in bed with a cup of tea, saying, "Relax, they can't do that, we're a rock and roll band." And people in motels don't see things like that. We'd get turfed out, and as we're driving off, I'd say to Ted, "Rock and roll band, eh?" And he'd say, "Pal, we're not the Rolling Stones, you know." It's lines like that that kept everyone around him grounded. So we're all going to miss him. Everyone's life here has been touched by him. People out there that have all got his records and that grew up with him, it's a big part of their life's gone. But we've got fantastic memories, fantastic stories, and no one can take that away. We're all better off for having known him. And we're lucky that his records are out there. You can always put on a CD, radio will play the occasional song, you'll see the occasional film clip. So we're all going to miss him. Sadly, whenever a singer or a musician goes, there's always the line, "Oh, he's in that super group up there having a good time." Well, I can tell you now, he's definitely up there, but he's not in any band. He's been there, done that. Ted and St. Peter are up at the park, just kicking back, digging the music. We're going to miss you. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. me just to explain how it is that Ted and I became friends. Also give me the opportunity to share an anecdote I promised I would share today. I first met Ted back in 1992, not before then. And I was introduced to him by my old friend and musical colleague Jim Manzi. Now Jim, interestingly enough, and this is the story I promised I would tell, he first met Ted on that fateful day that Old 55 and TMG and a number of other bands were performing on top of Victoria Park swimming pool, just next to Sydney University. There, sometime in the mid-70s, I can't remember exactly when it was. But Jim, for those of you who were there or remember the day, had been electrocuted shortly after walking on stage. He put his hand on the microphone and something wasn't right. It had thrown him about 10 feet backwards across the stage and left him completely unconscious. Frankie J. Holden was trying to cover the moment by saying, "What a performer! What a performer!" But Ted went straight into action with a bottle of Johnny Walker Red Label and was pouring this down Jim's throat. Eventually brought him round with Jim coughing and spluttering. And his first thing he remembers is hearing Ted say, "A few more swigs of this and you'll be good as new." Well, Jim swears to this day that Ted probably saved his life. As you might expect, and as I guess you could just pick up from some of the things Herman's just shared, we had many great fun times together. But none was more profound than the change that took place when Ted met Lee. Some 4 years ago now. But it was a dramatic change. We all saw it in him. We thought, "Oh, this is different. This is serious. This is a new Ted." I think Ted was pretty taken with Lynn from the moment they met. But Lynn told me she fell in love with Ted when she saw the way he played with her dog, Zach. As Lynn said to me yesterday, any man who would roll around on the floor with a Rottweiler wearing his best suit must be a special man. Ted, Lynn and Zach soon became something of a little family. And Ted was not shy about giving Zach lots of attention and affection. However, one fateful night, when the bedroom was in darkness and Zach was curled up on the end of Ted's bed, Ted knelt down and gave Zach a huge kiss and a cuddle, only to see Zach's head rise up from the other end of his body. With the tolerance that was born out of love, Zach casually gazed into Ted's stunned face. And it took some time for Lynn to get the story out of Ted because he was laughing so hard. As Ted said later, not many could lay claim to having kissed the wrong end of a Rottweiler to tell the tale. A number of people have commented to me that Lynn was the best thing that ever happened to Ted. And I think I'd have to agree with that. And Lynn, on behalf of the family, Ted's friends, I think we all want to say to you, thank you for all that you brought to Ted, and in particular for the selfless and tireless way that you have cared for him over these last 14 months. Few people could have done what you've done. And you know, as we know, that Ted appreciated it enormously. Friends, there's no getting around the fact that this is a sad day. It's a hard day. But rather than run away from that fact, I think we need to realise something important. And that is that if this life is all that there is, then there's very little we can take away from today, apart from our good memories of Ted. What I want to say to you today is that the truth that Jesus Christ makes clear to all of us is that this life is not all there is. There is more. There is a life to come. There is a world to come. And this life, in many ways, is about an apprenticeship for that life which is to come. And so I do think it's important today that we ask ourselves this question: how we can best prepare in this life for the life to come. You see, we're all going to leave this world. We know that for sure, don't we?
Doc, Ted was a great guy. We've all had a lot of fun with him over the years. What are some of your fondest memories?
I remember actually one of the first gigs we ever did was in Adelaide at the Arkaba, and it was we were shit scared, and the band were going really well with Jump in My Car, and he just said, like in his typical don't take anything too serious way, he said, oh fuck it, just go and have a good time. And I pretty much excuse maybe it's not quite family language, but no, he always had this whole thing about just get in, have a good time. I saw him on his last birthday after he just had a pretty major operation, and he had his birthday cake there. He was giving the nurses a hard time, and it's just Ted was just, you couldn't put him down, and it's just like whatever has happened now, his spirit's going to go on. It's going to go through rock and roll, and he's a one-off. He's a gem.
So, Daryl, a couple of memories of Ted. We've had a great loss, and it's a good chance to farewell a friend. What are some of your memories?
Probably the Around Australia in 80 Days tour, where it seemed to go on forever and ever, but Ted was always the last one in the bus in the morning when we left at 8 a.m. And I mean, God, he knew how to have a good time. And we always sort of, as Sherbet collectively, always thought, how does he do it every day, the Constitution? But he didn't. He was obviously loved by everyone, and he'd be sadly missed.
And a great contribution to Australian rock and roll too.
Most definitely. I mean, his career spans like decades, like from a solo career through to when he joined TMG, and then we secured a song off him as well, which was "You're All Woman," and he's done a lot. He's left a very good legacy, I'm sure.